joining us.
What's going on, and welcome in to this edition of Card Central 365 right here on STL Sports Central. This episode is powered by Gray Bar, your distributor for electrical and datacom needs. And of course, all the content here on STL Sports Central is brought to you by DraftKings. The crown is yours. Brenden Schaeffer along with Grant Salsman this afternoon. Cardinals took down the Athletics last night, 2-1, a well-pitched game by Miles Mikolas, which often seems to happen at home for the Cardinals. And you got the one key swing, the home run by Herrera to power the victory. And the Cardinals tonight will go for the series win against the nomadic Athletics, as I call them, because you can't really attribute a city to that team this year, Grant. But we'll talk maybe a little bit about that. We'll talk a little bit about the current series and preview the final game. But I wanted to spend the majority of today's time steering in a different direction, talking about Jordan Walker after some interesting comments that we heard on KMOX when the Gas House Gang guys, including our own Bertie Nicholas, had the manager Oliver Marmol on, as they do every Tuesday yesterday, but also Brant Brown joining the conversation and making some interesting comments when asked about Jordan Walker and his progress. And Grant, I think a lot of people by now have heard the comments, but to kind of summarize them, you know, it basically puts the onus on Walker, I think, a little bit to take some ownership, or maybe some additional ownership of his preparation and the way that he goes about success and what he believes that should look like versus maybe what the team thinks that should look like for Jordan Walker's situation. Grant, you and I were just listening to some of the comments from Brant Brown right before we came on the air here. I'm curious for your kind of reaction to what has been that conversation over the past day or so with the hitting coach talking pretty pointedly about what he and what the team thinks should be next for Jordan Walker.
Well, let me read just a few sentences because I want to touch on something. So he says at some point in time, Jordan Walker, is going to have to devote more focus on preparation. One thing with him is we played a massive game of tennis, going back and forth with what he feels like he needs to do versus what really has to happen. He says there's an easy way out. He needs to be a little uncomfortable to achieve what he wants to achieve. So I think the big thing is the almost hinting of, hey, this is what we're telling him to do. We're giving him this, and this outline, and we think if he does this, and this, it will succeed and roll over to game day. But I'm wondering if Jordan Walker is then I don't know the guy, obviously, but he doesn't seem like an arrogant. He seems like a coachable player, but I don't know. It sounds like if you're reading between the lines, Brant Brown's almost saying, but he's not doing that. Maybe he's doing it 75% of the way. Maybe he's doing it 85, 90% of the way. But in the MLB, best of the best, you got to be 100% in. Maybe Jordan Walker's not. I heard, Brendan, I was listening to Jamie Rivers on the radio, and, you know, from an athlete's perspective, he was talking about how he wished he would have done more when he was younger because it took him once he was older and maybe not as good as he could have been. He didn't quite reach the level of heights to be like, oh man, I got to grind. I got to be in here. I got to live at the rink. That's what needs to happen for Jordan Walker now. He needs to live at the ballpark. Whatever distractions he has around him, whether it's friends, girlfriend, family, whatever, you have to live at the ballpark for this next month at least to show the team you're committed, I think.
Yeah, and you know, it's one thing to put in work, but maybe the targeted type of work and the way that it needs to play out for him to have success may have a different look. And that quote you read there, I don't know if that was specific from the interview. I know Katie Wu wrote about this, and that was a quote that whether she got that from Brown or whether that was part of the KMOX, I just wanted to make sure we were attributing because I did see that quote as well from Katie on Twitter, attributed to Brant Brown. Some other stuff that did happen, and shout out to our own Bernie Nicholas for the great question that got the ball rolling with the Cardinal hitting coach Brant Brown in that interview on KMOX. a quote, at some point in time, he's going to have to devote more focus on preparation. We've had long conversations. It's not just looking at film on the starter, but be able to come in first day of a series, look at the bullpen guys, all the information and videos available, so we're not getting snuck up on when a reliever comes in. So, like, there's layers to this as well when it's, okay, you can know that they starter and what has to happen against him, but that's a couple at bats, especially when you're batting toward the tail end of a lineup. And then what happens in plate appearance number 3, 4, and 5 against the bullpen guys that they might be able to throw at you? That level of preparation to say, hey, first game of a series, I'm diving in and spending some time on their bullpen and their relief corps and what they might be able to do to me. And, like, it's interesting to hear it all laid out there by the hitting coach, because for one, you might be sitting there, and I think a lot of people's reaction to this was, well, duh. Like, isn't that the kind of stuff that seems very basic and simplistic that should be happening anyway, happening already? And, like, yeah, if the implication is that none of that type of prep is happening, then that would be, obviously, you look at his numbers and the 587 OPS and you say, well, no wonder. But I think when you think of it from Jordan Walker's perspective, imagine, just being by far the best player and the best talent on any team you've ever played on. High school, A-ball, high A, double A, skip triple A, and then goes back down there for a spell. But all the way up for Jordan Walker as a first-round pick, it probably came easy. He wasn't mashing an A-ball because of scouting reports. He was mashing an A-ball because he was that much better than everybody else. But the difference in pitching when you get to the big league level, and look, he had a season where even though he was sent to Memphis in 2023, he came back. His numbers cumulatively for that season were really strong. A 787 OPS was a 113 OPS plus. He was an above average hitter in 2023 and what he contributed at the big league level. Struck out 104 times that year in about 460 plate appearances. This year, he struck out 104 times in far fewer plate appearances. Like, has the same number of strikeouts that he had that season. Obviously, the power is completely sapped. He's hitting 220. It just seems like he's very in between on a lot of things. We're using the eye test as well to identify and say, man, there are times where it just seems that Jordan Walker is completely lost out there. We'll cling to the moments where things start to look good for him again, and then it oftentimes does seem to be short-lived. And so it's interesting. I hate to go out and say, clearly he's not putting in the work, because I don't know the extent to which that is the case. But I also look at it and say, feels like there's a reason that Brant Brown is answering these questions in the way that he is. It's candor. Feels like candor to me. And my reaction to it is to kind of believe that it could be high time for Jordan Walker if there has been any resistance in the way that the work is being done. Again, not to say he's not working hard, not to say he's not putting enough time in, but tailoring that work to maybe the way that the coaching staff is looking to see that most successfully and to be most effective with your time are the things that, ideally he would be doing. And any resistance to that doesn't feel like he would be outright going, no, that's dumb, I'm not going to do that. But it's almost like the proof is in the pudding, right? At the end of the day, if they're saying, hey, these are kind of some things that we think really should be where you spend a lot of your time. And it's sort of, yeah, but I can also do this other stuff. It's very vague, right, in the way that we approach it from the outside and the exterior, because we don't know the ins and outs of what goes on day to day. But it certainly feels like there is, maybe to an extent, or there has been at times, a disconnect in the way that those two things relate.
Well, especially for them to say it out loud. I know Ali Marmol said, I'm nowhere close to giving up on Jordan Walker, but for Brant Brown and even Ali Marmol to air out, I wouldn't say frustrations, but what they're trying to do, and that maybe it's kind of hinting, foreshadowing, whatever you want to say, at him not totally complying. There definitely has to be some friction there. And why I think, we kind of talked about this off air, why I think maybe it's not a slap in the face to Jordan Walker. Oh my gosh, why would they say that about me? I can't believe it. I can't believe they would say that out loud, because it's everything they're saying to him. I would have to assume. I would have to assume everything that was said was
he's heard
not like a shock to him. Yeah, he's heard it all. So that's what I would have to, why I think they were comfortable saying it, is because they weren't saying anything that Jordan Walker hasn't heard. At least I would assume that.
Yeah, and there's this interesting dynamic with all of this where I think if you ask the average Cardinal fan, they are going to be more inclined, I think, generally, to side with, and it's not to say there's friction here, but to side with a player over the coach who is airing out, hey, here's what we think the player is not doing or needs to be doing differently. Because when I think about the general public, they have not always nice things to say about Ollie Marmol. They did have nice things to say about Brant Brown at the beginning of the season, but now it's, I mean, there's a question in here from Mason Windu. The offense from last year and this year are on pace to have very similar numbers. Has Brown made any real impact? And that's, Mason Windu is one of our best commenters, brings great thoughts to the table. So I'm not implying that, he's just trying to take a cheap shot or something. I just think it sort of speaks to when there is the perception of, all right, the team is kind of going for this, the player is kind of approaching it this way. The player is the one that needs to increase the performance, but it's the team and the coach's job to get him there. Which side you come down on with comments like this? How do you view this, Grant, where, it feels as though it's maybe something that needed to be said, or like you said, has maybe been brought up to Jordan Walker in private before this gets aired out on KMOX. But I think the reaction from some fans is, well, I mean, who is Brant Brown to really be able to dictate and say, because, well, what's he done to help the Cardinals? Versus, I don't know, my reaction is, sounds like a lot of some reasonable stuff that if it's not already happening from Jordan Walker, no wonder he's not having success. But sometimes people look at that and say, well, I'm putting it on the coach that if he can't get the most out of these players, what's he doing as the coach here? That we've done this back and forth for years with hitting coaches, but I'm curious for your take.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, the hitting coach position is a little overvalued, maybe. Like, I think it helps your setup, your mindset. It helps you get ready. But at the end of the day, you can get their mindset right, get their stance right, their swing feeling better. And if they're not performing, they're not performing. You can give them all the info in the world. And if Brant Brown really is doing his job and giving Walker more and more and more, and he's not doing it, I struggle to see how that's Brant Brown's fault. Now, to his original point, I think that while the offense will be similar at the end of the year, it's still been much better. I think that with all the injuries the Cardinals have had and probably lesser offensive talent, Brant Brown's done a fine job. So I'm not blaming anything on him. But I think as a hitting coach, your job is everything before the game. Nothing, you can't really control once your players go out there in between the lines what they do up in the batter's box. So if he's really giving Walker everything that we're seeing, you can't put the blame on Brant Brown.
Yeah, and that's my thing. Like, it's the chicken or the egg. Is it the hitting coach's job to get the most out of the players? Well, yes, but is it the player's job at the end of the day to step in the batter's box and be the best version of themselves that they can be? Absolutely. And so where you kind of assign blame when things don't go well is sort of probably a sliding scale, but ultimately the result is the result. Like, the Cardinals need Jordan Walker to do more if they are going to continue to devote time to him and resources to him. And so, and that resource, obviously the scarcity of it is the playing time. You have to find the consistent playing time, maybe to be able to get the most out of a guy. We've seen that happen with Gorman. We've seen that happen with other guys. Right now, it's difficult to maybe get that from a Jordan Walker. Diving in a little bit on the comments, Mason Windu says, can't remember really who it was with, but an interview where they talked about rooming with players and stuff in spring training or whatever the case, and Walker's name came up, mentioned that he played a lot of video games. I've seen that he's got like some crazy hours logged on his username on NBA 2K. I don't know if that's real or not. The thing of it is, though, like, you would have thought back to previous decades of, like the 90s, those Cardinals guys, late 90s, early 2000s guys, were they like more of a veteran team where they might go out to dinner and maybe go party? I don't know. Not even like a Cardinals thing, but like in sports culture. Yeah. Was it like guys would go out and go to clubs or whatever guys would do back in the day? And now it's guys kind of stay in and play video games because that's the generation. So I don't think that that's necessarily anything that's, massively significant, but I don't know if you had thoughts on that. I was going to roll through some things, but what do you think?
No, I'm just saying that with you only have so much time in the day and only so much time can be devoted at the ballpark. I don't think it's because he's not there. Like, let's say he's on an off day, he's there from 8 to 5. What do you want the guy to go do? Go home, eat, play some video games, go to bed, get ready for the next day. Sure. I'd rather that than going out and partying. You know what I mean? Exactly. So I have no problem.
I want to bring it up. Yeah.
It's just, there's no
I wanted to bring it up because I'm going to keep talking. You stop. I wanted to bring it up because Mason Windu did, and I've seen people kind of talking about that. But it is one of those things that, like you said, it could be probably a lot worse ways to spend your time in the free time. And there's this too. He's 23, might just be a maturity issue. Isn't the typical guy, always been the biggest, strongest player in the league. Guys with those gifts, sometimes it's hard to realize that you need to work harder. I guess my thought would be, if that was the case, Grant, at some point, you would hope that, okay, the last couple of years would maybe make you kind of have that wake-up call, you know?
Yeah, I agree with that. And there's, with the comments about the hitting coach, I wanted to say this. At some point, it's not the hitting coach's fault. You fire the last guy. No, okay, now Brant Brown's going to help him. Okay, then he goes. Then the next guy comes in and doesn't help him. It's like a struggling quarterback. You keep bringing in new offensive coordinators. Oh, this is the guy that will fix them. Eventually, it's not the coaches or the coordinator's fault. Eventually it's the players. The player's not the guy we thought he was. I don't know if that's that from Jordan Walker, but that's just what it's leaning to be, it feels like.
Yeah, I think there's a case to be made that that's the case. But Rooster's wondering this, though. Is the comment from Brant Brown even throwing him under the bus? Which I don't know if we said under the bus. I think it was more of like, it kind of calls attention to the situation. And he answered a question. It's not like he came on going, I'm going to lay out Jordan Walker today verbally. Yeah. I think he came on, Bernie asked him a good question, and he answered it to what I believe truthfully, right? They've changed up his swing so much. Maybe he's just saying they need to shift their focus from his swing to preparation. I think there is probably only so much swing tinkering you can do. It's valid, but also if the reports are, and they talk a lot about like swing plane and the angle of attack and a lot of those sorts of things. For a big guy like Jordan Walker, that might be something else that's kind of happening here behind the scenes. But like, I guess the question, Grant, how harsh do you think these comments were versus just kind of, it's just part of a fact of life with Jordan Walker?
I see what Rooster's saying is that when his tennis comment could have been like, we've gone back and forth so many times. Now we just need to lock in on this is who you are. This is what we got. This is how we get you better from there. But again, I don't find it crazy harsh. I find it a little surprising that he said it. Yeah. But I don't think it's terrible that he did. It means that they've talked about this before, which is good. Maybe it will make Jordan take a little bit of accountability. I don't know. I don't think he's sitting now at Busch Stadium probably right now moping and ticked off about it. Like, I think he understands what's happening and it's been said to him.
Yeah. And this is from Mason Windu, where the strategy didn't work out well with O'Neal, where they kind of called him out in a public way. I know it's a bit different, but it seems to devalue Walker. Like I said, I don't think there was like a lot of strategery going on here where Brant Brown's like, here's what I need to do to like set the table for the PR of how the fan base needs to look at Jordan Walker. I think he just was answering a question. And it's kind of in the media, we go, oh, okay. I mean, this is something to talk about for a team that otherwise isn't doing much right now. They're going to be 80 wins or whatever. It's not that interesting. Jordan Walker is interesting because I do think, Grant, there's a long range question about Jordan Walker as to whether or not the Cardinals can be actually the organization to get the most out of him. Like if he's going to reach his potential, does it happen with the Cardinals? I'm going to pose that question to you, Grant, in just a moment. But first, I'm going to tell you a little bit about DraftKings, the proud sponsor of everything going on here at STL Sports Central in Missouri. Get ready because the wait's almost over. DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, is coming soon to the Show Me State, and you can sign up today, even though it doesn't launch until December 1st in Missouri. New Missouri customers can get $300 in bonus bets when DraftKings launches on December 1st. Download now and place a $5 bet once they go live. DraftKings Sportsbook brings everything you need to elevate your game day, including live in-game betting, lightning-fast payouts, and endless ways to get in on the action, all right from your phone. And when we officially go live in Missouri, you'll be betting with the Sportsbook app trusted by millions, safe, secure, and has fast money withdrawals. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code STL Sports, that's code STL Sports, to grab $300 in bonus bets with just a $5 bet when we go live on December 1st. That's STL Sports for your code in partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER, 21 plus. Physically present in Missouri. Eligibility restrictions apply. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Excludes customers who redeem pre-launch sign-up offer. Terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos. So, Grant, I pose you the question. Can the Cardinals be the organization to get the most out of Jordan Walker? Can he succeed here and reach his potential? Or have you sort of given up on that notion at this point?
I don't think not only have I given up on it happening here, I don't think it'll ever happen. I think we know what he is. I think his potential, he's set a new type of ceiling potential for himself. I think it's a everyday every other day player right now, and hopefully his ceiling can be a starter that can give you good defensive numbers and have a little pop every now and then. But I don't think it's the all-star MVP candidate that really was his ceiling. I mean, that was what it felt like when he got called up, and I just don't think that's who he is right now.
It's definitely not who he is right now. Can it ever be who he becomes? Like, I can't put that away because I saw him for a season go 787 with the OPS, which is pretty good. I mean, it's not a maybe all-star caliber, but it's knocking on the door. And if you did that every year, I mean, you'd end up with a really fine career. I just wonder if the environment, and like, again, maybe the fact that the Cardinals are changing out so much about their development process, and a lot of the folks who had a hand in the early days of his professional career are no longer going to be the folks that decide the future. Maybe there can be a turnaround, simplify the approach, but also put in the prep work, the scouting report stuff that, that Brant Brown seems to feel like could be the next level for him. Maybe it happens. I think it's going to be like a switch that flips if it does happen, though. It's not going to be this gradual. It's going to be like, he is completely lost. He is so inconsistent. Bang, he finds it, and now he's the player he's supposed to be. Like, I think it could be like that night and day, but a lot of times what requires is a switch in the scenery. Like, you have to find somewhere else to do it, because it almost is that mental, like, that's the mental wake-up call. Like, oh man, I really haven't been putting it in the work the way that I need to get the most out of my skill set, until you're forced to go somewhere else. I don't know if that is necessary, because like I said, maybe the benefit is the Cardinals changing out so many pieces and parts. But like, I think Brant Brown's going to be here. I think Ollie Marmol's going to be here. And these are guys that have been trying to get the most out of him for this year. But right now it's very interesting and simple. Like, if Brian on YouTube can say, if I'm a pitcher, Walker's getting only sliders, and that's actually pretty much a great way to approach him, until he can lay off it and then have to, like, if I'm a pitcher, Grant, step one, throw him sliders low and away and get him to swing over the top of them. And if he doesn't swing, then I proceed to step two. Too often right now, pitchers are not having to get to step two with Jordan Walker.
No, not at all. It was a couple days ago, I think he had the 4 strikeout game, and it was, let's throw sliders away every single time. He'll take 1 or 2 and he'll swing at 3, and we'll get him out and we'll move on with our lives. Like, that is how easy it's been. This is an interesting comment here, because I don't think that's what's going to happen, but there's Brenden, where Chaim Bloom decides to clean house and do what he wants with this organization.
Yeah, I would be surprised by that. I don't think Ollie or Brant Brown are going anywhere. But it has enough changed? Like, is the mosaic of it all enough? It's not like Mo is interacting with Walker on a day-to-day. But is there somebody that gets in Walker's ear that kind of the light bulb goes off? Because I remember being, they're sitting in a chair watching him talk in January saying, man, Brant Brown, it's been great, the time we spent. But like, you kind of realize that some of what you hear at winter warmup is not the end all be all. And sometimes it's not put into practice in an effective way. And so that's what I don't know the answer to yet. But okay. So Grant, you've said you don't think it's happening with the Cardinals, but not only that, you don't think it's happening regardless. Would that mean your official stance is, hey, if I'm fading this player and his future, trade him for whatever you can get for him if there's a modicum of trade value right now? Would you move Jordan Walker in the offseason? Yo Mama says, hey, 1 more year, but what do you say, Grant?
I don't think that's crazy. 1 more year. I think it depends what you do. If you have 3-4 outfielders right now that you're happy with above Jordan Walker, you get him out. Because if he's a 5th outfielder, he has no service. I could see if you consider him your 4th outfielder next year, I'd be okay with that. Because that still means he's getting a healthy dose of game time, plenty of at-bats to see a little more, get him 1 more chance. But if he is that 5th outfielder, it's done. I think that would say enough right there if they value 4 outfielders above him that a new scenery is needed.
Is there a world in which, I mean, it's tough. I'm just trying to wonder. I'm just trying to wonder if, like, you can't really devote playing time to him if you think he's your 5th best. So give me the names right now. Let's go through it. Next year's outfield. Guys that are currently here. Let's not worry about who's going to be traded. Let's start with who's here, and then we'll thin it out from there. Lars Nootbaar is here. Victor Scott. Yeah. Alec Burleson. I think are here. I think all of them would have better performance right now than Jordan Walker. Who else is in this mix?
I mean,
Like
Nathan Church could be, but I don't think they're valuing Nathan Church above him.
No, not above Walker.
JJ, or not. If JJ Weatherholt comes up, Brendan Donovan could be.
Right. I'm going to continue to stick JJ on the infield. I think he'll be an infielder. Yes. Brian puts these three. I mean, that seems to be your starting outfield.
Yes, but no. What I'm saying is, you stick JJ in the infield, moving Donovan to a corner outfield spot, to a right field.
Yeah,
is a possibility.
I think multiple infielders get traded. But you could be right. I don't think they don't want to put Donovan in the outfield from like a durability perspective. I think they'd prefer him on the infield too. Herrera is the other name. Like, he's either going to DH or he's going to play outfield. He won't catch, in my opinion. I've been saying that. I'm not looking at the roster right now, but who are we obviously missing that?
I really don't know if there's a name we're missing.
It's more about the infielders who, like you said, with like a Donovan, what do you do with him? Is Gorman going to be every day? Does that push somebody else to the outfield? I feel like that's more what it's about at this point in time. Other outfielders on the 40-man. Yeah, I mean, right now it's Hampson and Church in left and Walker. So, like, you do kind of project, I suppose, Walker to be that number 4 with the caveat of what exactly happens with Herrera in his position. You know, is he DH full-time, or do they really want to prioritize him for the outfield? Oh, boy. It's tough, man. It's tough if that's going to be the situation. I also don't think that sending him to Memphis helps either. No. Like, okay, he doesn't project for playing time in April of 26, so send him to Memphis. I just don't really know that that's going to be something that helps a turnaround at all.
Yeah, if you're contemplating Memphis or the big leagues, get him out.
In year 4.
For the sake of him, for the sake of the Cardinals, yeah.
You also can't play him, though. You can't play him over Burleson. You can't play him over, some of the other guys that we would be talking about in that conversation.
I agree.
And so that is where it gets a little bit dicey. But I also think that, like, a guy like Lars Nootbaar is going to be evaluated for the winter and potentially to be moved. But could you do an outfield that has Burley in one corner and Walker in the other corner? I don't know defensively. Same thing with Ivan Herrera, like, good athlete, but not, superior range. It would be very green as an outfielder. So I just don't know what the fit is when it comes to that in the playing time. I'm going to go on record and on stance. You can't trade Walker this winter. I will go down with the strip. I will be stubborn about it. I will understand that could mean an uncomfortable 2026 with him. But I do think he could be a guy that someone's going to unlock it. And I'd hate to hold Walker back from that, but it's not to the point for me where, the Cardinals need to do a service to him by getting him somewhere where he can thrive and have a different coach. He's not he's 23 years old. And it was mentioned as well in the comments by somebody that said, it was the Umama comment about one more year. If he'd gone to college, he wouldn't even be in the big leagues by now at this point. True, but he is in the big leagues and has been. And, if you're the Cardinals, you can't run out Jordan Walker as your everyday right fielder in 2026 just because of the pedigree of his draft class. You know what I mean? That's the part that by then I think the results have to be what puts you on the field, which is kind of why I'd like to see him playing more often right now. But I also think that we're probably fooling ourselves if we say another 4 weeks is going to massively change the way that we look at it.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. I just think that at the end of the day, this season, maybe just give him some playing time, find some confidence for the offseason. But I don't think they're ready to give up on him yet. I think if they are planning out some playing time for him next year, he will be here. And it might be if things go really bad, he might not be on the roster at the end of the season. But I would be really surprised if he gets traded.
Because I think teams are going to be calling. I would look at the Brewers, and they landed Andrew Vaughn, who was just terrible with the White Sox, and he's got like an 830 OPS with them. He's definitely tailed back down, but the number, my point is, like, reclamation projects like that, teams will be hunting for that in the offseason. The Cardinals will get calls about Jordan Walker. The Cardinals will not like the names being floated in exchange for him, but that's where you have to be stubborn, in my opinion, of like, all right, it may be that we go down with the ship on this player, and that's going to be difficult, but keeping him around and trying to say, hey, it's not really, there's no like more, It's not charity case. There's no more like playing time to be given up just because your name's Jordan Walker and you were a first-round pick. Go be great by putting in the work.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not there to comment that he has or hasn't been putting in the work, but it's interesting what his coach had to say. So that's kind of – go ahead.
No, I would just agree. I think the only way you trade him if you're wowed. If wow, this is an arm.
They still think he's that? Okay. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the way that it would make sense, and I just would not necessarily anticipate that. So we'll see what happens, but like I said, I'd be holding on to him. I think we all understand sort of where things are, though, right now with Walker. It's hard to project him in a contending outfield for next season and continue to devote the playing time if things do not turn around and do so quickly. One more quick thought as we actually do talk about a little bit of tonight's game. What do you expect tonight from Matthew Liberatore, Grant, as he takes on Jeffrey Springs? Cardinals going for that series win. They're sitting on a nice number of wins right now, 69-71 the record, but they're trying to still get to 500. You like that? I know you did.
Need to see something from Libby. It's been struggle bus last month and a half, really since the All-Star break. He hasn't gone really deep into games. I'm not saying he needs to go 6 or 7 or 8 innings, but to see him go 5, maybe give up only a run or 2 and just look like the Matthew Liberatore we've seen again. He's only got 4 more starts, probably, give or take 4 or 5 more starts. Just something that can maybe ease your way into a successful last month here.
Yeah, and he hasn't pitched at Busch in quite a while, since August the 12th. His last 3 starts, 5 innings, 3 runs, 4 1/3, 4 runs, 5 innings, 3 runs, all on the road. We'll see if he's able to kind of coalesce into getting to pitch at home once again after a few road games in a row, and hopefully building back up that strength and stamina to be able to give the Cardinals a chance tonight. Brian says it, when Libby throws strikes, he succeeds. When he nibbles, he fails. Attack the strike zone. He's got to trust this stuff, and hopefully the velo will be there as well for him tonight. Well, that's going to wrap things up on this edition of Card Central 365, powered by Gray Bar, your distributor for electrical and datacom needs. And of course, all content here on STL Sports Central is brought to you by DraftKings. The crown is yours. For Grant Salsman, I am Brenden Schaeffer. Make sure to stay tuned to the YouTube channel tonight for the post game as we discuss whether or not the Cardinals were able to get the series win over the Athletics and move a little bit closer to that 500 record. Thank you guys for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time right here on the YouTube channel.